now we would like to move on to our first panel discussion titled Innovating the Future. So panelists, please take the seats and to the stage, and we will be shortly begin the session. From now on, I just want to be your moderator for this session, and we will now move on to this first session. The topic is Innovating the Future. And the Japan-Australia relationship has become an indispensable partner, not only in resources and energy, food and education, but also in innovation, which is essential to advancing DX and GX. This is because Japan faces a number of issues and challenges such as a low birth rate, an aging population, and the shortage of labor forces. And Australia also faces challenges such as housing shortages. And how can Australia and Japan work together to maximize mutual benefits? And how can the two countries innovate to address common challenges such as rising geopolitical risks and cyber attacks and supply chain restructuring, as well as digitalization and climate change mitigation? One of the keys is to stimulate an innovation-focused debate and promote open innovation across the region, involving startups and universities. In both countries, we will now discuss the future of Australia and Japan opened up and maximized through innovation. For this important topic, we have three panelists who are best placed to discuss the current situation of Japan and Australia. Allow me to introduce our esteemed panelists. First, to my left, to your right, Mr. MACKELLAR, Tom MACKELLAR, is the Executive Officer Development of the Lendlease. And he has over 20 years experience in corporate finance, M&A, and business performance, and has held various senior management positions in Australia, UK, and Europe. Tom spent 5 years as CFO of Lendlease Europe, playing investment and development at playing Europe. Prior to moving to London, Tom was Executive Director, Investment and Development at Barangaroo South. He has responsible for structuring and negotiating the project's financing arrangements, leases, and other commercial matters. Very welcome, Tom-san. And next, Mr. RACHIT KHOSLA, Australia, Country Manager Australia, Industrial Growth Platform Inc., or IGPI. He has over 15 years of experience as strategy consultant, leading and executing go-to-market, growth strategy, and open innovation engagements across Asia Pacific. He previously lived in Singapore, covering ASEAN and Oceania region and Indian subcontinent, where he has advised many Fortune 500s, including prominent Japanese companies and government bodies. And RACHIT was previously the country manager and director of Solidiance Asia Pacific and founder and CEO of an online B2B marketplace. RACHIT is on the Innovation, Technology and Startups Working Group of HABCC since past years. Great to have you here today. And on the far right is Professor Mimi Zhou, head of the School of Private and Commercial Law at UNSW, Sydney. Mimi is one of the youngest heads of the schools at a leading Australian university. She has also one of the youngest legal academics to be appointed as a chair professor at a leading UK university at the age of 36. I'm not sure how old you are, but and her research focuses on the impact of emerging technologies such as AI and blockchain on private and commercial law, and the regulation of emerging technologies from a comparative and international perspective. She's also an innovator and entrepreneur, having set up the first legal tech innovation lab at Oxford Law Faculty and worked with successful law techs and fintech companies in Europe and Asia. In terms of Japan, she was a visiting professor at Waseda University and Tokyo University between 2016 and 17. She was a member of a special task force that provided recommendations on deep tech and agile governance to the G7 digital ministerial meeting in Japan held in Gunma in 2023. Now, I would like to ask each of you to make the opening remarks to share your idea of innovation in relation to your business.
Thank you very much. Maybe just a little bit about Lendlease to start with. We're an integrated real estate investment and development organisation. Currently, we have about $11 billion of projects that we're delivering in partnership with Japanese partners, such as Mitsubishi Estate, our friend Yuzo here, across cities in Melbourne, Sydney, New York, London. We also have a business in Tokyo. We employ about 200 people in Tokyo. We've been there since 1988. So the relationship between Japan and Australia is very strong and fundamental to our business.
Thank you very much. And Rachit-san?
Morning, everyone, and thanks, Kaori-san, for the introduction. I think I'm not as great as it sounded on the intro. For me, I'll just introduce IGPI and what's the innovation angle in our business. IGPI stands for Industrial Growth Platforming Corporation. We are a consulting and investment firm. We operate on a hybrid model. So I think that's the first innovation angle, because I think in the 21st century, professional services paradigms need to be innovative as well. So consultants can't get away by just making good-looking slides. And so, of course, you need to share the risk. So that's why the investment angle comes in our business. We are about 7,500 people in the group across Asia Pacific and beyond. And the business basically has three pillars. The first is management consulting. So the innovation angle in that is that we advise a lot of Fortune 500 companies, mostly Japanese, on new business creation and open innovation strategies. Because for a lot of Japanese companies, the conventional revenue streams and their balance sheets will not look the same as they look today in 2030s and 2040s. So that's the innovation angle. The second pillar of our business is venture capital. So we manage about 500 million Australian dollar equivalent worth of venture capital money. So we have raised money from JBIC, Takahashi-san is also in the room, and Honda, Omron, Panasonic. And we make investments in different parts of the world. Made more than 20 investments. 4 companies are already unicorns. So that's encouraging innovation. And the third and the final pillar of our business is private equity style investments, which we do in Japan and beyond. So the innovation angle in that is that when we buy those companies, we need to use technology and innovation for things like cost reduction to increase the EBITDA of the companies. So in all pillars of our business innovation is very, very key to us. And we try to play our part in encouraging this in the Australia-Japan corridor as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachit. And Mimi-san, please.
Thank you very much, Kaori-san. Thank you very much to the Nikkei team and my friends at Financial Times that made the introduction to Kaori-san. Delighted to be here today. I actually want to start off with asking everyone a question about whether anyone could guess where my favorite place in Australia is when I was growing up and also now. That's going to be a hard question to answer. It's in Canberra. As a science nerd? Yes! Now, how many of you know that Questacon was established as a bilateral project for the Australia-Japan bicentennial in 1986? Yes, of course, I know you would know that, Jane. So the Japanese government and Japanese businesses actually paid for half the building. And so for me, I'm just so excited to be here today because just looking at the strides that both countries have made in science and technology partnerships over the last few decades really it's why we're here today. And as a researcher at University of New South Wales, Sydney, we're ranked number 19 in the world. There's been lots of partnerships between our researchers and Japanese researchers across a wide range of area, from AI, solar, robotics, biotech, and these are the partnerships that are very important for both countries in driving innovation and economic growth. So I spent a long time in the UK, another important bilateral relationship with Japan, a country that shares many similar values. And I founded the first, as you said, deep tech innovation lab at the Oxford Law Faculty. I created a spin-out with fellow Oxford computer scientists. We deployed advanced machine learning models to help companies gain deeper insights into their customer data. And our first client was Panasonic, which I'm really proud to say. Japanese companies are often seeking cutting-edge technologies to maintain their competitive edge, and many are actively looking to partner or invest in the most innovative startups from around the world, and often coming from universities. So that's what innovation means to me in our sector.
Thank you, Mimi, so much for explaining all the background with your relationships to Japan as well. And Tom, I'd like to ask you how the Lendlease is responding to, in terms of, so many digitalization and decarbonization, while you have a strong pipeline of the developments, the city shaping big projects. How do you cope with the decarbonization purpose and also serving to so many demands from the society and your clients?
So I think as an organisation, we're committed to reaching absolute zero by 2040. So in any new project that we look at, we are trying to reset the bar for what it means to deliver sustainable products. So all the time we're looking for innovation in the supply chain and how do we decarbonise the buildings that we deliver. It's a very long journey to go on, and probably steel and concrete are two of the hardest things to decarbonise, and we're working very hard on that. However, what we are doing in our newer buildings is innovating where we already have the technology. So some of our newest residential and office products are all electric buildings, so we're removing gas out of our buildings. And then we're looking at how do we use our buildings more efficiently. So we're creating buildings that are sustainable from the outset, and we can monitor the energy use as we go.
And I heard that in Australia, the buildings with the certain qualification in terms of environment is more required by the tenants, and which is sounds really advanced. Could you explain that more to us?
Yeah, most large-scale tenants that move into office space now are demanding that the buildings are as advanced from a sustainability perspective as possible, because a large proportion of the carbon that corporates use is in the physical real estate that they occupy. So when we create new office product, they are looking at how do they move into the latest buildings that they can. So they put the requirement on us to deliver very sustainable buildings, but also our investment partners also are demanding the same thing. So we don't really have a choice other than to innovate.
Right. Promoting innovation and digitalization requires a lot of energy and electricity. Tell us about your initiatives in Japan with Japanese companies in terms of data centers required for the use of AI.
Yeah, we've very recently in April, I think it was April this year, opened our first data center in Tokyo. So we're looking at how do we develop further capability in the data center space using our integrated capability to deliver real estate and infrastructure solutions. So it's one of hopefully many that we'll be delivering.
And about with your partnership with Japanese companies, how do you utilize the capital from Japan?
Really, we don't look at our Japanese partners as capital. They're true partners. We work together the whole way. We ensure that the groups that we work with, such as Mitsubishi Estate, really have a philosophical alignment with us, and then we work together to co-create the projects we deliver. And that can come right down to, looking at what toilets we use and using Toto technology, is becoming more and more prevalent in our Australian projects. So it's about working together and sharing a philosophy.
Yes, the philosophy of bathroom, yeah. Zen. Right. And could you elaborate the last question to you? The characteristics of Japanese partnership with Japanese companies, how different are they? Or is there anything that you should mention?
I sort of think of them, they are true partnerships. They're also friendships, and as friends, you respect each other. You work together over the long term. It's not about doing one transaction and then that's it. It's about forming a lifelong relationship, and that means you have hard days and you also have good days, but you work together to strengthen that relationship over time. And it takes many, many years to build those relationships.
Great, thank you. And to RACHIT-san, I would like to ask how the Japanese companies are partnering with the startups and innovative companies in Australia. How do you match those needs together?
Right, yeah. I wish there was one easy answer for that. So just as by means of a backdrop, me and my team, we have interviewed more than 300 Australian startups in the last 3 years, primarily in two areas, green and digital. So I think these are two core strengths of Australian innovation. Green, I know green is a very vertical term, so it cuts across renewable energy tech and circular economy, etc. While digital is more of a horizontal term, it can have AI and machine learning related use cases in agri-tech, fintech, cybersecurity, so on and so forth. So I think these are two good areas from Australia. But if I look at it from a Japanese lens, because when we advise headquarters of Japanese companies, I think unfortunately, the Australian innovation is a bit underappreciated at the other end, because historically, Japanese companies have been looking at Silicon Valley, Singapore, Israel, and other markets. And if you want to look at empirical evidence of that, just have a look at the CVCs of Japanese companies and where they are mapped. So you'll only find their mappings in those countries more than Australia. But the good news is that in the past 3-4 years, I think it's slowly changing. And I think a lot of things are helping. For example, public information, I support the JETRO J-Bridge program, which is focused on open innovation matchmaking. Then Richard is in the room. He runs a fantastic innovation technology and startup working group. So I think every year the tailwinds are changing. And people are seeing the impact of that. For example, if I ask you, do you know that JR East, few thousand JR East vending machines in Japan use an Australian AI, which came out of CSIRO. It's called Hivory. Marubeni is building a supply chain of hydrogen from Australia to Indonesia. They need technology to store hydrogen. That's being done by Lavo, which has origins in UNSW, as you would know. Sumitomo Mitsui Construction Corporation is building an autonomous crane in Japan. That's a technology comes from an Australian company called RoboRigger. There are so many examples. Smart City, Isatena is a WA listed company. It's into AI smart surveillance. So now they have MOUs with NEC in South America. And MACKELLAR, which is a technology, Sogoshosa invested in them. There are a lot of these examples that are coming slowly but surely. But I think more needs to be done in that space. So yeah, that's why we want to play our part as well. Thank you.
So I'd like to ask Mimi-san about the perception gap between Japan and Australia, and how can we make Australia be known more to the global and Japanese companies with this technology?
It was a great question. So when I was in high school, 10 years ago, much longer, I studied Japanese, and Japanese was very much, and you probably can guess the decade I grew up was still in vogue, and certainly, and I'm first generation Chinese Australian, but I found Japanese quite not easy, but it's easier because I already know Chinese. So at least I know kanji, and so it was at least easier to pick up than perhaps my friends who were not exposed to Asian languages. So it's often perceived that there's a language or cultural barrier for Australian companies going to Japan. I do believe that a lot of the people-to-people exchange definitely help. You know, at UNSW we do have a sizable Japanese student community. Unfortunately, don't get me started in terms of the international students cap. I could be here for ages talking about how terrible that proposal is of the government, but certainly I think that there are the more interactions we have between particularly young people between the two countries. I mean, I'm not saying you can't be in your 40s and having a startup, but certainly when I see the innovation spaces that Ranjit's talked about, there's a lot of younger people there, and as a university, those are sort of exchanges that we want to promote, and also to convince Australians that Japan is a huge market. They don't have to go to Silicon Valley. I was at a British Chambers AI Summit last week, and I met a lot of Australian startups who are heading towards Silicon Valley or the UK, Europe, and I've been trying to convince them that actually you should look at Japan. They're actually a great friend in the region. Don't worry about language, cultural barriers. You're gonna thrive. So, as I've said, the startup that I founded at Oxford, the first company, the client, was Panasonic. Japanese companies, I do believe, are searching for the best technologies out there and will work with many innovative startups around the world.
Thank you so much for persuading them to look at Japan. And Tom, I'd like to ask you, how are you keeping the partnership with Japan to respond to the challenges in Australia, such as housing shortage?
So I think Japan has been developing high-density housing for a very long time, many decades, and from an Australian perspective, we can learn a lot from the innovation that is going on in Japan, from both the construction methodology, but also just how you design the product. So when we work with our Japanese partners, they've got a lot more experience and history in actually developing housing, which makes them a fantastic partner because they've had the lessons, the learnings, and so forth. And they have very significant capital to deploy outside of Japan, which is very useful as well. So between the sort of two countries, I think there's a huge opportunity to really close some of the housing gap that we have here in Australia with that like-minded philosophical approach.
But I still respect the wide, half-yard garden of the Australian dream. But that's good to know that.
I think the Premier, when he arrives, may challenge that dream.
Okay. And I'd like to touch upon the AI, how AI is changing your business. And especially to Mimi, could you explain how Australia and Japan are playing their roles in this region, in the Asia Pacific? How can we do better work?
Yeah, so I think besides the sort of scientific research development partnerships in this sector, I also really believe that both countries have a lot of shared values, and that we, having been involved in a lot of international technology governance forums, I do really see that there's a natural alliance between Australia and Japan when it comes to rules, AI rulemaking. So I was involved with the World Economic Forum's the fourth Industrial Revolution Center based in Tokyo when I was at the G7 last year. And I do think that both countries really see eye to eye when it comes to promoting democratic values and a rule of law based regime for AI governance. So, both countries want to advocate for AI systems that are safe, responsible, respect human rights, privacy, And I think both countries are at a relatively early stage in terms of our regulatory developments towards something that is like a European Union's AI Act. I'm not saying that is a model for Australia or Japan. I think we need to come up with our own models of regulation in this area that suits our country's needs and characteristics. But certainly this is an area which I'm very passionate about, and really I look to working with business leaders and political leaders in this room to hopefully actually have bilateral dialogues on AI governance, which I don't think there's nothing formal at this stage, but I certainly look forward to playing a role in setting that up.
Thank you so much. Rachit-san, I'd like to ask a different question. What are the challenges that we face, the Australia and Japan, in terms of innovation strategies? And how could we adopt the best strategy from a global perspective?
Right. I think in terms of challenges, based on the work we do, I think there are two key challenges. One, I think I already touched upon briefly, is the perception problem. Unfortunately, that can only happen slowly but surely. And as I said, a lot of good things are happening, so that's contributing to that. And I think the other challenge when we advise Japanese companies on looking at Australia for innovation, like when you invest in conventional businesses, I know Japanese like buying beer companies in Australia. Those are more straightforward because they are more oligopolistic industries and you directly buy into market shares. But when you look at it from an innovation lens, you require more. And one of the big barrier that goes is the market size. So I think one of the ways that some Japanese companies are now looking at it, that not looking at innovation for Australia, but from Australia, so that they can try to use it to solve problems of a third country, and in the process increasing the addressable market size. For example, a hypothetical example, like Australia and Singapore now are collaborating in decarbonizing of marine ports. So in case if Australia and Japan master those technologies, the addressable market is not only Australia. Those technologies can have use cases in Singapore and other markets as well. So automatically the market size goes up because these are very investment heavy kind of opportunities. And if I look where my consulting have, I think when Australia and Japan come together and they have to differentiate, there are only few ways you can differentiate and have a competitive advantage. So one is cost leadership, second is going niche, and third is making something truly different. I think cost leadership for Australia, Japan is very difficult because both being developed countries, so that boat sailed, I don't know, decades ago. So I think the only ways Australia and Japan can come together and have a competitive advantage globally, or at least in the Eastern Hemisphere, is by going very, very niche in terms of decarbonization technologies and doing rule making, or differentiating with technologies which are very deep tech. Yeah,
Thank you so much. And I would love to hear more from you all, but the time is running out. And thank you for your valuable insights. Please join me in applauding the panelists.